at the Pony GI, we're going to say cranial, caudal, left, right. Here is our diaphragm. You can see through the central tendon is the more clear part, the transparent part. We have 3 tubes. This is the caudal vena cava running here. And there are 2 veins entering it, the hepatic veins. We have the esophagus running through the diaphragm. And we have the aorta also running through the diaphragm. Tiny little segments of an aorta. The diaphragm also has 2 crura, so there's a left and right crus, right, that hold that diaphragm up against the body wall. So there's a crura on either side here. What we got next? Next we have the kidneys. Kidneys, so we can see a left kidney and the right kidney is hiding underneath here. In equine, the kidneys are heart-shaped, very cute. There is a ureter going caudally, and it's obviously cut off because the bladder is no longer attached. There's also renal arteries and veins that connect there. In this right kidney, we've opened it up so you can see the outer cortex and the inner medulla. Okay, so lighter on the outside, a little darker on the inside. All right, what's up? Liver. Liver. So we're gonna flip back our diaphragm and we're gonna see the lobes of our liver. Again, this is the right side. So this is the right lobe, the quadrate lobe, and the left lobe. To see our last lobe, I'm gonna lift it all the way up. And then there's this tiny little caudate lobe. So that's the tail, the caudal bit. Right next to that caudate lobe is actually the entrance. This hole goes into the space created by 2 mesenteries, 2 omentums. Right, so that hole, do we know what that is? Epiploic foramen. Horses love to throw small bowel into that hole, entrapment. Okay, so that epiploic foramen leads to the omental bursa that's created by greater or lesser omentum. Right? Now what?
Portal vein and bile duct.
So portal vein we can't quite see. It would be underneath this mass, but the portal vein collects blood from all of our GI tract and puts it into the liver. The bile duct is right here. Horses do not have a gallbladder, right? But they still have a bile duct. The bile duct enters into the duodenum, which is opened up here. And you could see this major duodenal papilla right here, where that bile duct is coming in. There's also a minor papilla right there. So major, minor duodenal papilla inside the duodenum. Spleen. All right, we'll put this back down. Spleen is on the left side. So here's our spleen. It's a nice tongue shape. So here's base, body, and apex of the spleen. And we're doing something between the kidney and spleen. So we have a nephrosplenic ligament. So that's what this connective tissue is. And then my hand is in the nephrosplenic space. This is also a place where horses like to loop some of their bowel in there. So that's a place of entrapment.
Esophagus.
Esophagus, right? We saw on this side, presuming we're going to stomach now. We might want to come around this side. All right, so as we look at our stomach, it has been opened up, so we lose some of the shape of it, but the bottom is the greater curvature with the greater omentum. Here's the lesser curvature, and the lesser omentum is that shiny bit. Up on this edge, that rounded part is the fundus, the main part is the body, and this part narrows down to be the pylorus region. Okay, so on the inside, we'll start up at the esophagus with the probe in there. So I pull on that, the esophagus comes in, in the region called the cardia. All right, and then this is where I get to place the bot. So this portion is the non-glandular. The white part is more in the fundus region. The glandular part, the shiny part, is more the body and pylorus. The botflies like to live in the boundary, so those little pock marks are where the botflies larvae attach. And it's very common to have those little botfly in there. There are a lot more than that. What is the boundary between those two regions called? So Margo plicatus is that boundary. Margo, I think it's the boundary. All right, I think that's it for that. And we can go through the pylorus. So that pyloric sphincter is in where the probe is going through, and then we would enter into the duodenum. So that's that next tube that I've already opened up, remember, so we could see where the duodenal papilla were. So that is the duodenum. As we continue on the right side, we have descending duodenum all along the right side, and there's mesoduodenum holding it together. As we come around the back, the caudal edge, that's the caudal loop or caudal flexure of the duodenum. And then there's a very small segment of ascending duodenum up in there. Okay, so that was all duodenum. Onto the jejunum. All right, so then we just kind of pile through all of this because all of this is jejunum. All right, so basically any of these parts are jejunum. In the mesojejunum, which is the mesentery of the jejunum, we have jejunal arteries, so there's several of those. And there's also mesenteric lymph nodes. So those kind of darker structures are mesenteric lymph nodes. If I collected all of this together, this would be called the root of the mesentery, right? So that cranial mesenteric artery sending its jejunal arteries down is at the root of the mesentery. As we move through the jejunum, then we would go to the last segment of the small intestine, which is the ileum. So you can really see the difference here. It gets bigger, kind of lighter from jejunum to ileum. Here's the cecum already. And so all of this is the ileum, and this is the ileocecal fold. And that helps us delineate how much of that is ileum. And then we're into the cecum. So ileum, we're gonna look at the cecum now. So I'll try to get it situated. The cecum makes a comma shape. So at the top of the comma, the rounded edge, and then the point of the comma. Okay. So the top part is called the base, then it's the body, and then the apex is the point. The cecum has bands, and then the saculations that make little scrunchy bits, right? Make little sacs. If we look into the cecum, we can see where the ileum is entering. So there's ileum, that's the ileocecal orifice. And right next door, down in that space, is the ileocolic orifice, right? So that's going to go into the right ventral colon, which is down here. Okay, so we get everything in cecum?
Cecocolic fold.
All right, so cecum to, here's our two big parts of our ascending colon. So in the horse, the ascending colon makes two horseshoes. Right, so here's ascending colon, here's cecum, here's the cecocolic fold. The ascending colon starts with the right ventral colon. There are bands and saculations in the ventral colon. As we come around the front, the cranial edge, it's called the ventral diaphragmatic flexure. And then as we come onto the left side, we're in the left ventral colon. So bands and saculations again. So left ventral colon then leads to things erupting out of the colon, the pelvic flexure, and then in my hands here, the smoother and smaller left dorsal colon. Okay? Dorsal colon comes around, so we have a dorsal diaphragmatic flexure. On the right side, it gets really big, and that's the right dorsal colon. Between this and the other end, basically between my hands right now, is the transverse colon, which is underneath everything, but it is short, traverses across the body, and then the rest of the small colon is called the descending colon. Right, so all of this is descending colon, and then we're out the rectum. So the descending colon has bands. This is the anti-mesenteric band, because it's away from the mesenteric. The mesenteric band would be along here, and there are saculations where the little fecal balls are. The mesenteric is called mesocolon. This is also mesocolon between the two large colon. And I think all we have left is maybe some arteries. Yep. Okay. So we'll put everything kind of back in place, the liver in place, the diaphragm in place. We'll come back to our aorta here, try to pull that out a little bit. Right, so what's left of our aorta, and then the first main branch off is called the celiac, right, artery. And it has 3 branches, 1, 2, and 3. One goes to the spleen, one goes to the stomach, and one goes to the liver. So it's splenic, left gastric, and hepatic. The craniomesenteric drops down and gives rise to our jejunal arteries that we saw earlier in our jejunum. But then these 2 other arteries come off the craniomesenteric. So if we're on the dorsal colon, it's called the right colic. If we're on the ventral colon, the artery is the colic artery branch. So those 2 come together at that pelvic flexure. So right colic and colic come together. We did it. Yay!